Chapter 1. The Rejection. The moon hung high above the Bloodclaw packhouse, bathing the courtyard in silver light. It should have been a night of celebration. A night of promises. A night where everything I'd ever dreamed of came true. Instead, it became the night my world shattered. I, Alpha Thayer of Bloodclaw Pack, his voice thundered, deep and commanding, echoing over the gathered wolves, reject you, Eliora Thayer, as my mate and Luna of the Bloodclaw Pack. My heart stopped. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. My ears rang with the sound of gasps from the pack members gathered in the courtyard. My lungs tightened, refusing to draw air. And then the bond, the sacred, unbreakable tie that the moon goddess herself had woven between us, tugged painfully inside me, like a rope being cut with jagged glass. I staggered back a step, clutching my chest. No. My voice was a whisper, broken and raw. No, Kace. You can't mean that. He didn't even flinch. His dark eyes were cold, detached, as though he were speaking to a stranger. A stranger he despised. I gasped as another jolt of pain shot through me. The rejection bond, it wouldn't be complete until I accepted it, but I felt every thread of it unraveling, tearing at my soul. No, oh, you can't do this to us. I cried out, my voice shattering in the heavy silence. You can't reject me. Not after everything. I scanned the crowd desperately, searching for a familiar face, for someone, anyone, to stand beside me. My gaze fell on the one person I expected would never fail me. My best friend. Sienna. The girl who had stood by my side since childhood. The girl who had sworn she'd fight for me no matter what. The girl who had promised me that she'd slap sense into my mate if he ever dared to hurt me. But she wasn't beside me. She was standing next to Kace. And she was smiling. Her arms were linked with that of her own mate, but her eyes sparkled with cruel delight as she watched me crumble. The ground tilted beneath me. My chest tightened until I couldn't breathe. The bitter taste of betrayal filled my mouth, thicker than blood. Sienna, I whispered, my voice breaking. Why? She didn't answer. She didn't even look ashamed. The pain surged again, doubling me over. Without a wolf to help me bear it, every jagged shard of the broken bond cut straight into me. Most wolves could let their wolf take the brunt of rejection pain, but not me. My wolf had never awakened. And now I had no shield. Tears blurred my vision as I looked out at the crowd. Faces I'd grown up with. Wolves I'd trained beside, laughed with, protected. My family. My people. They just stared. Not one of them stepped forward. Not one of them reached out to me. They whispered, pointed, gossiped. These are the people I put before my own happiness, I choked out, my voice trembling as the pain racked me. And they've all betrayed me. Kace's jaw tightened. For the briefest second, I thought I saw hesitation in his eyes, a flicker of doubt. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. This is for the good of the pack, he said firmly. His voice was like a blade, cutting through what was left of me. You are not fit to be Luna. I sank to my knees, the rejection still hanging incomplete in the air. My body trembled, my heart screaming for him, for the bond, for the love we were meant to share. But love had never been real. It had been a lie. A cruel, perfect lie. Chapter 2. Broken but unbowed. The forest was merciless at night. The trees pressed close together, their branches clawing at me as I stumbled through the underbrush. My dress, once white, was torn and caked in mud. My bare feet bled from sharp rocks and thorns. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. Behind me was nothing, no home, no family, no pack. Ahead of me was, I didn't know, darkness, hunger, death, maybe. Every step was agony, the rejection bond gnawing at me from the inside. My chest still ached, raw and torn. Without my wolf, the pain lingered like a festering wound. Sometimes it dulled, lulling me into thinking it had passed. Then it struck again, sharp enough to steal my breath. Rogues didn't survive long without strength. I'd seen them before, wild-eyed, half-mad, barely clinging to sanity. Wolves who had lost their packs or been cast out. Wolves who had no home, no purpose. They roamed the borders, desperate, dangerous. Now, I was one of them. I collapsed beside a fallen log, wrapping my arms around myself. My stomach growled, hollow and empty. I hadn't eaten since yesterday, and my body was weak from rejection. The forest floor was cold and damp, but I was too exhausted to care. Tears threatened again, but I bit them back. I had cried enough for one lifetime. "You're not dead yet," I whispered to myself. My voice trembled, but it was something. If Kace wanted me gone, he should have killed me. He didn't. So I'll survive. I have to. The words sounded hollow, but I clung to them like a lifeline. The days blurred. I scavenged what I could: berries, mushrooms, anything that didn't smell poisonous. My hands were scratched raw, my lips cracked from thirst. I drank from streams, flinching at every sound, terrified that another rogue, or worse, a hunter, would find me. Nights were the hardest. When the moon rose, the bond pain sharpened, as though the goddess herself was reminding me of what I'd lost. My body shook with silent sobs, and every whisper of wind felt like laughter. I curled up beneath the trees, shivering, my arms wrapped around my thin frame. Sometimes, I thought I heard footsteps. Sometimes, I swore I felt eyes watching me. But when I turned, there was nothing. On the fourth night, exhaustion finally overtook me. My head lolled against the trunk of a tree, and my eyes drifted closed. That was when I saw her. The moon goddess. She appeared in the haze of my dream, bathed in silver light, her gown flowing like mist. Her eyes were endless pools of starlight, ancient and knowing. "Eliora," she whispered, her voice both gentle and powerful, echoing through the dreamscape. I fell to my knees, weeping. "Why, goddess? Why did you give me Kace only to take him away? Why let me suffer like this? What did I do wrong?" Her gaze softened, and she touched my cheek. "You are not weak, child. You are not broken. You are untested. What was taken from you will be returned in another form. Stronger. Fiercer." My lips trembled. "I don't want another mate. I don't want another bond. I can't." My voice cracked. "I can't survive this pain again." Her smile was sad, but unwavering. "The fates do not ask what you want, Eliora. They give what you need. Your story does not end in rejection. The one meant for you is still out there. A second chance." I shook my head violently. "No. Please. I don't want it." "You will," she whispered. Her form began to fade, her voice lingering like smoke. "He is a beast, feared by many, but he is yours. And he will never let you go." I jolted awake, gasping, sweat soaking my skin. My chest heaved as her words echoed in my mind. A second chance. No. No, I didn't want that. I didn't want another Alpha, another betrayal, another bond to tear me apart. But deep inside, a whisper curled in my blood. The moon goddess had spoken. And whether I liked it or not, fate was already moving. The dream haunted me for days. I refused to believe the moon goddess. I told myself it was nothing more than a fever hallucination born from hunger and exhaustion. But the whisper of her words, "He is a beast, but he is yours," lingered like a brand on my soul. I didn't want another mate. I didn't want anyone. I just wanted to survive. But survival was proving harder by the hour. By the seventh day, my body had grown gaunt. My ribs pressed against my skin, and my legs shook with each step. I tried to scavenge, but the forest was merciless. The berries that had sustained me were dwindling. Chapter 3. The Beast's Claim. The forest felt smaller with him in it. Alpha Draven's presence consumed everything: the air, the silence, the space between us. His golden eyes burned into me as though he could peel back my skin and see everything I was trying to hide. I wanted to run. Goddess, I wanted to run until my lungs burst and my legs gave out. But where would I go? The Bloodclaw pack had turned their backs on me. Rogues prowled the wilderness, waiting to sink their teeth into weakness. And now here he was, this beast, this Alpha who declared me his as if my will meant nothing. "You're coming with me," he said, his voice calm but unyielding. "No," I spat, summoning strength I didn't have. "I'm not yours. I don't want you. Do you hear me? I don't want you." His lips curled in something between a smirk and a snarl. "It doesn't matter what you want. The bond already knows. You can fight it, little mate, but it will break you before it ever breaks me." I shoved myself to my feet, though my knees trembled. "Stay away from me." He moved faster than thought, his hand snapping out to grip my wrist. The contact sent a violent jolt of heat tearing through me, the mate bond flaring to life. I gasped, my body betraying me with a shudder of longing I didn't want to feel. His eyes darkened at my reaction. "You feel it too." I tore my arm free, rage burning away the shame. I felt it before, and look where it got me. Rejected. Humiliated. Left for dead by the people I gave everything to. My voice cracked. "I won't make that mistake again." His expression shifted, just slightly. Something flickered in those golden eyes, something almost human, almost wounded. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by the cold mask of the Alpha. "You don't have a choice," he said, his voice flat now, final. Then he shifted, bones snapping, for sprouting, the beast rising once more in a whirl of raw power. The great black wolf towered above me, and before I could even blink, his jaws closed gently but firmly around the back of my shirt. He hauled me off my feet like I was nothing more than prey. I screamed, kicked, clawed, but he ignored it all, carrying me deeper into the forest. The world blurred past, trees, rivers, the pale light of the moon, all spinning into one endless nightmare. By the time he finally stopped, I was trembling with exhaustion. And that's when I saw it. Shadowfang territory. The forest gave way to a wide clearing filled with towering log structures, watchtowers, and wolves patrolling in neat, disciplined ranks. Unlike Bloodclaw, which had been warm and communal, this place radiated danger. The wolves here moved with rigid purpose, their eyes sharp, their bodies hard and scarred. This wasn't a pack. It was an army. The black wolf set me down before shifting back into his human form. He didn't even bother to clothe himself. He stood tall, powerful, as if his sheer dominance was armor enough. The others dropped to one knee at the sight of him. "Alpha," they chorused. Draven's gaze never left me. "This is your Luna." The words struck me harder than any blow. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My stomach churned violently. "I'm not," I started, but he cut me off with a single growl that silenced everything. "You are mine," he said, his voice carrying through the clearing like thunder. "And by extension, you are theirs. No one touches you. No one questions you. Anyone who does will answer to me." The wolves bowed their heads lower, murmuring their submission. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might tear through my ribs. I wasn't their Luna. I didn't want to be their Luna. But in that moment, I understood something terrifying. He wasn't giving me a choice. That night, I was thrown into a room that was more prison than sanctuary. Stone walls, iron bars over the window, a heavy wooden door bolted from the outside. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my shaking hands. Part of me burned with fury. How dare he? How dare the moon goddess bind me to this monster after everything I'd endured? But another part of me, one I despised, still felt the echo of his touch. The bond pulsed beneath my skin, whispering treacherous things. I pressed my palms to my ears, whispering to myself, "I won't break. I won't. He can take me from my pack, he can call me his Luna, but he can't have my heart. He'll never have that." The door creaked open. Draven filled the doorway, a shadow cut from midnight. His eyes burned as they fell on me, and for a moment, neither of us moved. Then he stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The air thickened, charged with something dangerous. "You think you hate me now," he said softly, "but you'll learn, Eliora. You'll learn that I am nothing like the fool who cast you aside." His voice dipped lower, rougher. "I do not reject what is mine. And I will never let you go." My breath hitched, and for one terrifying, treacherous heartbeat, I almost believed him. Chapter 4. Fire and Ice. The Shadowfang pack did not welcome me. Oh, they bowed their heads when Draven passed, but the moment his golden eyes were off them, their gazes cut into me like knives. Whispers followed me through the halls, sharp and mocking. "She doesn't even have a wolf. Why would the Alpha choose her? She looks fragile. Weak. A liability. Each word burrowed into my skin like thorns, but I forced myself to keep my chin high. I would not let them see me break. Not again. Draven, of course, seemed oblivious, or worse, indifferent. He strode through his pack like a king, commanding obedience with the barest flick of his gaze. To him, their whispers didn't matter. His word had been law. I was their Luna. End of story. But for me, every day was a battle to hold on to what little pride I had left. The clash. It happened one evening in the training yard. I had been ordered, yes, ordered, to sit and observe as his warriors trained. The clash of steel and the thud of fists against flesh filled the air. Wolves lunged, shifted, rolled, and struck with brutal efficiency. Draven wanted me to see their strength. I knew that much. He wanted me to understand the world I had been dragged into, the power he wielded, the army at his back. But something inside me snapped when I heard one of the warriors laugh under his breath. Luna. More like his pet. Heat surged through me. Before I could think better of it, I stood, stormed down into the dirt of the training field, and grabbed a practice blade. Draven's sharp gaze locked onto me instantly. Eliora. His voice was a warning. I ignored it. If I'm to be your Luna, then I'm not going to sit around and be mocked. I'll prove I'm not weak. The warrior who had spoken stepped forward, sneering. You. His voice dripped with disdain. You'll last 5 seconds before you're on the ground. Then you'd better make them count, I shot back, raising the blade. Gasps echoed from the circle forming around us. No one ever defied their Alpha's decree. No one ever challenged his command. But I wasn't one of them. And I was done being the victim. Fire meets ice. The spar was brutal. The warrior came at me fast, his strikes hard and merciless. My arms shook with the effort of blocking, my lungs burning as I fought to stay on my feet. The whispers from the crowd blurred into a dull roar in my ears. I wasn't strong. I wasn't fast. But I was desperate, and desperation could be a weapon. When he lunged, I sidestepped, letting his momentum carry him forward. I slammed the hilt of my blade into his ribs. He staggered. Gasps rippled through the watching crowd. A flicker of pride sparked in my chest, until he growled and came at me harder, teeth bared, his strikes wild with fury. The blade slipped from my trembling hands. He slammed me down into the dirt, his weight crushing the air from my lungs. And then, everything stopped. A low, guttural snarl tore through the yard, freezing the warrior in place. Draven. He was across the yard in an instant, one hand clamping down on the warrior's throat, lifting him off the ground as though he weighed nothing. His golden eyes glowed with lethal fire. You dare touch her? His voice was thunder, shaking the air itself. She is your Luna. You will bleed before you forget it. The warrior choked out apologies, but Draven didn't release him, not until the man's face turned purple and his knees buckled. Finally, he flung him aside like a rag doll. The entire yard dropped to their knees. And then his gaze snapped to me. For a heartbeat, I thought he would scold me, cage me, rage at me for defying him. But instead, his expression was unreadable as he hauled me to my feet. You're reckless, he said quietly, his eyes searching mine. But there's fire in you. Fire I won't put out. The heat of his grip seared through me, the bond pulsing between us. For a moment, the world around us disappeared. It was only him. His hand on my arm. His golden eyes locked with mine. And for the first time since he'd taken me, I felt something terrifying stir in my chest. Not just hatred. Not just fury. Something else. Something I couldn't allow myself to name. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of my stone chamber, his words echoing in my mind. Fire I won't put out. Why did it sound less like a threat, and more like a promise? Chapter 5. Bound in Blood. The pack avoided me after the incident in the training yard. No one whispered within earshot anymore. No one dared look me in the eye. Not after Draven nearly crushed one of his best warriors for laying a hand on me. But the silence was no comfort. If anything, it was heavier than their gossip. A silence filled with fear and resentment. I wasn't blind. I saw the way their gazes lingered on me, cold and accusing. To them, I was the outsider who had bewitched their alpha, a fragile girl who didn't deserve the throne she had been handed. And sometimes, in the dead of night, when the echo of their disdain weighed too heavily on me, I almost believed them. Almost. The beast's shadow. Draven didn't speak of what had happened that day. He didn't scold me for stepping into the ring, nor did he praise me for daring to stand up. But he watched me differently. His eyes lingered longer, as though he was searching for something beneath my skin. As though he saw in me not just a broken girl, but the fire he claimed lived inside me. And that terrified me more than his anger ever could. Because sometimes, when his gaze burned too deep, I felt the fire stir. And I didn't hate it. The attack. It was the night of the blood moon when the first blow came. The pack had gathered in the central clearing, drums beating low as the wolves howled to the scarlet sky. It was a night of power, of rituals, of pledging loyalty to the Alpha under the eye of the goddess. I stood at Draven's side, the weight of 100 hostile stares pressing into me. His hand brushed against mine, firm, grounding. And then, chaos. The scent of blood hit the air a split second before the first scream. Figures in black surged from the tree-lean, blades glinting crimson in the moonlight. Rogues. Dozens of them. The ground erupted in snarls and screams as wolves shifted mid-air, claws raking, teeth tearing. Blood sprayed across the clearing as warriors met the attack head-on. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. My body screamed at me to run, but before I could move, a rogue lunged from the shadows, his blade raised high. I froze. Steel cut through the air. And then he was gone. Draven stood before me, the rogue's body dangling from his claws, golden eyes ablaze with fury. He ripped the man apart as though he were made of paper, blood soaking the earth. When he turned to me, the beast inside him had fully surfaced, feral, terrifying, drenched in carnage. And yet, when his gaze locked on mine, that fury bent, softened, shifted into something primal and possessive. "You're mine," he growled, voice rough with something darker than rage. "No one touches you. No one." The bond tightens. The battle raged around us, but in that moment, it felt distant, muffled. My chest heaved as I stared up at him, the bond burning hotter with every heartbeat. I hated him. I wanted to hate him. He had dragged me into this world, forced me into his pack, bound me with chains I never asked for. And yet, as his bloodied hand slid against my cheek, as his eyes softened just enough to let me see the man behind the beast, I felt something break inside me. Something dangerous. Something irreversible. The bond pulsed, alive and undeniable. And I realized, with horror and a traitorous thrill, that I no longer wanted to run. Aftermath. By dawn, the rogues were dead, their bodies piled high at the edge of the clearing. The pack licked their wounds, some mourning, some seething for vengeance. But all eyes turned to us. To him. To me. Draven stood tall, blood still smeared across his chest, a conqueror forged in fire. I stood beside him, his hand on mine, the pack forced to see me not as an outsider, but as the Luna he had chosen, whether they wanted me or not. And deep inside, beneath the fear and confusion, a whisper coiled in my chest. Maybe I belonged here. Chapter 6. The Wolf Awakens. The fire pit in the center of the clearing still smoked, the acrid scent of blood heavy in the air. The battle had ended hours ago, yet its shadow clung to every stone, every tree, every scarred face. But it wasn't the stench of death that kept me awake. It was the pounding in my chest. A rhythm that wasn't mine. A strength that wasn't mine. Something inside me stirred, restless and wild, clawing against the confines of my flesh. My wolf. For years, I had been told she didn't exist. That I was cursed, broken, less than half a wolf. But in the aftermath of blood and fire, I felt her. A whisper at first, then a growl. And she wanted out. Restless nights. Draven hadn't left my side since the battle. At first, I thought it was just his usual obsession, the beast in him refusing to let me out of sight. But the way he moved through the pack, the way his eyes never left me, it was different. Protective. Possessive. And something else I couldn't name. When night fell, he stood at the foot of my chamber door like a shadow carved in stone. I paced restlessly, my skin prickling, heat coiling in my belly, my mind a storm of thoughts I couldn't untangle. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, blood-drenched, snarling, fierce and terrifying, yet shielding me with his body as though I were his very heart. I hated how safe it had made me feel. "Stop pacing," his voice rumbled from the door. I froze. "I wasn't." "Yes, you were," he cut in, golden eyes glinting in the firelight. "You're restless. I can hear it. Feel it. Feel it." I scoffed, folding my arms. "That bond doesn't mean you get to read my every thought." He tilted his head, the ghost of a smirk tugging at his lips. "I don't need to read them. You wear them on your face, little wolf." The word struck me like a blow. Little wolf. For the first time, I wondered if he knew. If he sensed what was stirring inside me. The first shift. It happened 2 nights later. The fever started in my veins, spreading through every inch of me. I doubled over in the courtyard, gasping, my bones burning, my skin tearing from the inside out. Draven was there instantly, catching me as I collapsed to the ground. "What's happening?" I choked, clutching at my chest. His eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw something I had never thought possible on his face. Shock. "It's your wolf," he whispered. "She's waking." The pain was unbearable, fire and ice tearing through sinew and bone. My screams echoed into the night as my body convulsed, shifting, breaking, remaking itself. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, the world looked different, sharper, brighter, alive with scents and sounds I had never known. I stumbled to my feet, on 4 legs. Pause. Silver fur shimmered under the moonlight, my reflection in the fountain's water taking my breath away. I had a wolf. I wasn't broken. His reaction. Draven knelt before me, his golden eyes wide, unblinking. For a terrifying heartbeat, I thought I saw fear. And then, wonder. "You're magnificent," he murmured, his hand brushing against my fur. His voice cracked, and I realized he wasn't just in awe, he was undone. Something in him shattered at the sight of me. Something I didn't understand, but felt deep in my bones. I growled softly, not in warning but in confusion, in release. He smiled faintly, the most human expression I'd ever seen on his face. "Mine," he whispered. And for the first time, I didn't flinch at the word. Because in that moment, as my wolf stood beneath the blood moon and Draven knelt at my side, I wondered if he was right. Maybe I wasn't just his. Maybe he was mine. Chapter 7. The Alpha Returns. The Shadowfang pack was still buzzing with whispers about my shift. They called me the Silver Wolf, the mate who had risen from ashes, the Luna who was born in fire. But the truth was simpler. I was just me. Broken, healed, reborn. And maybe that was what terrified me most. Whispers in the dark. For weeks after my first shift, the pack looked at me differently. Some with awe, some with fear. But no one ignored me anymore. Draven's people bowed when I passed. Warriors trained harder under my gaze. Even the elders, who had once scoffed at the thought of a Luna without a wolf, now spoke my name with respect. I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt unsettled. Because power always drew attention. And attention always came with enemies. It was late one night when the warning howl split the silence. The Shadowfang warriors bristled, rushing to the borders. My heart hammered, dread twisting through my veins as I followed Draven to the edge of the territory. That's when I saw him. Kace. The Alpha of Bloodclaw. The man who had broken me. The mate who had thrown me away. Old wounds. He looked the same, tall, broad, dark hair falling into storm-gray eyes. Yet something about him was different. Weaker. The arrogance he wore like a crown seemed cracked, like a mask slipping. "Eliora," he said, his voice carrying through the clearing. "I came for you." The words were knives. For a heartbeat, I forgot how to breathe. Draven's growl rumbled beside me, low and lethal, a predator on the edge of violence. "She's not yours." Kace's eyes narrowed, flicking between us. "You think she belongs to you? She's mine. Always was, always will be." The audacity of him made my blood boil. The memory of his rejection still burned like acid in my veins. "You rejected me," I spat, my voice trembling with fury. You made your choice, Kace. And I made mine. The clearing went silent, every Shadowfang warrior holding their breath. But Kace only smirked. You haven't accepted it yet. The bond isn't broken until you say so. Deep down, you still belong to me. My wolf snarled inside me, a sound that ripped from my throat before I even realized it. The sound startled me, but it thrilled me too. I was no longer the girl he had broken. The challenge. Draven stepped forward, his golden eyes blazing with fury. Step foot across my border again, and I'll rip your throat out. Alpha or not. Kace didn't flinch. He wanted this. He was baiting him. And for a terrifying second, I realized why. This wasn't about me. Not anymore. This was about war. Kace, I said, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest, I don't need to accept your rejection. I live it. Every day. And I don't want you. Not as my alpha. Not as my mate. Not as anything. His smirk faltered, but only for a moment. You'll change your mind. When you see what's coming. Then he turned and vanished into the trees, leaving behind the promise of blood. Between two bonds. That night, I couldn't sleep. Draven prowled the halls like a caged beast, restless, angry. When I finally found him, he stood alone in the training yard, his fists bloodied from striking the wooden posts. He'll come back, Draven said without looking at me. And when he does, I won't hold back. I hesitated, my heart torn in ways I didn't want to admit. He's dangerous, Draven. He has nothing left to lose. And I have everything to lose, he growled, finally meeting my gaze. His golden eyes softened, just barely. You. The word sent a shiver down my spine. Because even though I hated Kace, even though I wanted nothing to do with him, his return had stirred something inside me. Not love. Not longing. But fear. Fear that the past wasn't finished with me. Fear that no matter how far I ran, it would always find me. And fear that one day soon, I would be forced to choose. Chapter 8. Blood on the Border. The days after Kace's return were thick with tension. Shadowfang warriors doubled patrols, their ears pricked for danger. Mothers hurried their pups inside when the howls echoed too close to the border. And every night, Draven paced like a storm that couldn't break. The calm before the war. And then it came. It was near dawn when the alarm sounded, 3 sharp howls that cut the silence. I bolted from bed, my wolf already stirring under my skin. By the time I reached the courtyard, the air was thick with the scent of blood. Bloodclaw, Draven snarled, his chest heaving. They've crossed the border. I froze. This wasn't a threat. This was war. The Shadowfang warriors shifted one by one, their wolves sleek and powerful under the rising sun. Draven's shift was always breathtaking, fur black as midnight, eyes molten gold, a beast built for battle. And then he was gone, leading his wolves into the trees, toward the sound of snarls and screams. I stood trembling, my body aching to follow. My wolf clawed at me, desperate to be unleashed. But fear held me still. I had shifted once before, yes, but shifting was one thing. Fighting, killing, that was another. Then I heard it, a voice among the chaos. Kace. Eliora, he roared from beyond the border, his voice carrying over the carnage. Come back to me, and I'll call my wolves off. Refuse, and I'll burn Shadowfang to the ground. My blood turned to fire. I ran. Into the trees, into the screams. My bare feet splashed through mud, my lungs burned with every breath. The battlefield was a blur of fur and blood, snarls and howls. Shadowfang and Bloodclaw tearing each other apart. And then I saw him. Kace stood in the clearing, his wolf towering and snarling, gray fur streaked with blood. His eyes locked on me instantly, wild and desperate. You're mine, Eliora, his wolf's voice growled inside my head. Accept it, and I'll spare them. Draven lunged from the shadows, his black wolf slamming into Kace with earth-shaking force. The 2 alphas collided in a storm of teeth and claws, and the warriors around them froze, watching. Alpha against alpha. Past against future. And me in the middle. Something inside me snapped. The fear, the doubt, the shame, all of it boiled into rage. My wolf surged forward. My body broke apart, bones shifting, skin tearing, silver fur bursting through in a blaze of light. The pain was nothing this time. No, it was liberation. I was not weak. I was not broken. I was wolf. A roar ripped from my throat, my silver wolf stepping into the clearing. The battlefield froze. Every eye turned to me, glowing, untamed, radiant in the dawn. Kace's wolf faltered, his eyes wide. Eliora. But Draven didn't stop. He slammed Kace into the dirt, his jaws at his throat. Finish it. His golden eyes burned into mine, the command echoing through the bond. Sever him. End this. The world held its breath. The war, the pacts, the bond itself, all balanced on this one choice. I stepped forward, my paws sinking into blood-soaked earth. I could feel both bonds pulling at me, the old, jagged thread of Kace's claim and the wild, burning tether of Draven's. Kace whimpered, his arrogance gone. Eliora, please. My wolf bared her teeth. I reject you, Kace Thayer. The words thundered through me, final and absolute. The old bond snapped like glass, and the pain was sharp, but it was freedom. Kace howled, his body writhing as the severing ripped through him. When it was done, he collapsed, his wolf broken, his power dimmed. I was free. The Bloodclaw wolves scattered, their alpha fallen. Shadowfang howled in triumph, their voices shaking the forest. Draven shifted back first, his body bruised and bloodied but standing tall. He reached for me as I shifted, my body trembling, my silver hair damp with sweat. You did it, he murmured, his hand cupping my cheek, his eyes blazing with pride. You severed him. I tried to speak, but tears spilled instead. Relief. Pain. Freedom. Draven kissed me then, fierce and claiming, his lips tasting of blood and fire. You're mine, Eliora. No past. No chains. Only us. And for the first time, I believed it. Chapter 9. Betrayal Within. Victory should have tasted sweet. But instead, the pack returned bloodied, weary, and scarred. The forest floor still reeked of death when we limped back through Shadowfang's gates. Warriors carried their wounded on makeshift stretchers, pups peeked wide-eyed from doorways, and the air was thick with both triumph and unease. Draven stood tall at the head of his warriors, but I could see the exhaustion in the rigid set of his jaw. He had won. We had won. Yet even as the wolves howled his name, I felt the shift in the air. Not all the eyes on me were welcoming. It started that same night. I heard it when I passed through the halls of the packhouse. She's a curse. Did you see her? Silver wolf, glowing like the goddess herself. Unnatural. She'll bring ruin. They didn't whisper quietly enough. My stomach twisted, but I lifted my chin and walked on. Shadowfang had accepted me once, but battles revealed truths. To some of them, I wasn't their savior. I was the outsider who had brought war to their doorstep. And I could feel the weight of their resentment growing. 2 nights later, I found proof of it. I was walking back from the training grounds when I felt the prickle of eyes on me. The moonlight caught the glint of steel just in time. A dagger flew past my cheek, embedding itself in the wooden post behind me. I spun, shifting instinctively, but the attacker melted back into the shadows before I could strike. The smell clung to the blade when I yanked it free. Shadowfang. My heart dropped. This wasn't Bloodclaw. This was one of our own. Draven's rage when I told him was volcanic. They dare touch what is mine, he thundered, slamming his fist into the table. His warriors flinched, their heads bowed. But anger wouldn't fix what was festering. I saw it in their eyes, the doubt that grew like rot. They loved Draven, but me? To them, I was a stranger with a silver wolf, a symbol of disruption. And when Draven left that night to inspect the borders, I overheard the council murmuring. She's not fit to be Luna. She'll destroy him. We must act before it's too late. The betrayal came swifter than I imagined. At the next feast, I lifted the goblet of wine they handed me, smiling faintly as I raised it in toast. But the moment the liquid touched my tongue, my wolf screamed in warning. Poison! The goblet shattered as I dropped it, crimson staining my hands. Gasps echoed through the hall, wolves rising to their feet in alarm. And in the silence that followed, a voice rang out, cold, sharp, and venomous. She's not our Luna. She's a curse. The council's eldest wolf stepped forward, his gaze burning with hatred. She has bewitched our Alpha. Tonight, we break her hold. The pack erupted, some shouting in agreement, others in outrage. Draven wasn't there. I was alone, surrounded, their eyes glinting like predators closing in. My wolf pressed against my skin, ready to fight, but my heart thundered with one truth. This wasn't Bloodclaw anymore. This was Shadowfang. And they wanted me dead. I stood tall in the chaos, my silver wolf burning beneath my skin, and I met the councilman's glare head-on. "If it's war you want," I growled, my voice shaking the rafters, "then war you will have. But I will not run. I will not break. I am your Luna, whether you want me or not." The packhouse fell silent, the tension stretched to a breaking point. And then, in the distance, a howl rose. One I knew. Draven's. But it wasn't a howl of triumph. It was a howl of warning. Something else was coming. Something worse. Chapter 10. The Luna's War. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Wolves snarled, chairs toppled, voices rose in furious shouts. My declaration still echoed in the rafters, but I stood unmoving, the shattered goblet at my feet, my heartbeat a steady drum in my chest. I was done running. Done being the victim. "Silence!" The councilman roared, but his words only stoked the flames. Wolves shifted halfway, teeth flashing, claws scraping wood. My wolf surged inside me, silver light flickering in my veins. And then the great doors burst open. Draven stormed in, his eyes black, his aura filling every corner of the room. The air stilled. His presence demanded submission, and one by one, heads bowed. But his gaze found me first, blood staining my dress, glass glittering at my feet, and fire in my eyes. "What happened?" His voice was low, lethal. "She tried to poison me," I said before anyone else could speak. Or rather, they did. Gasps rippled through the hall. Draven's gaze swung to the council, and his growl was deep enough to shake the walls. "You dare lay a hand on my mate?" The eldest councilman sneered, unafraid. "You are blinded, Alpha. She is no Luna of ours. She will bring ruin to Shadowfang." Draven moved so fast I barely saw it. One moment the old wolf stood defiant, the next his throat was in Draven's hand, claws pressing just enough to draw blood. "Say it again," Draven snarled, "and it will be your last words." But before blood could spill, the howl rang out again, louder this time, closer. A ripple of unease spread through the wolves, and my stomach turned cold. The enemy was at our gates. Bloodclaw. "They've come," I whispered. Draven released the councilman with a shove, his eyes burning as he turned to me. "Stay here." "No," I said firmly. "I fight with you. I fight for Shadowfang." He stared at me, torn between rage and pride. Then, with a sharp nod, he growled, "By my side then, Luna." The pack surged into the night, a river of fur and claws beneath the silver glow of the moon. I shifted, my silver wolf blazing like fire against the dark forest, and together with Draven's massive black wolf, we led them into battle. Bloodclaw descended like a storm, Kace at the helm, his snarl twisted with fury. "Eliora!" he roared across the field, his voice carrying above the clash of wolves. "You were mine. You will always be mine." The words cut, but they no longer chained me. "You rejected me," I spat back, power thrumming through my wolf. "And I reject you in return, not as your mate, not as your Luna, not as anything." The bond between us snapped at last, severed clean and final. The pain was sharp, but fleeting, because something stronger filled its place. My bond with Draven blazed to life, whole and unbreakable, wrapping around me like armor. Kace lunged, but Draven met him mid-leap, two alphas colliding in a storm of fur and blood. The ground shook with their battle, each strike echoing with years of betrayal and fury. And I was no longer a pawn. I fought, my silver wolf cutting through Bloodclaw like moonlight through shadow. For every warrior who tried to bring me down, 3 of Shadowfang rose to shield me. The pack I once thought would never accept me now fought as if I were their heart. Because I was. Because I had claimed that place with tooth and claw, with fire and blood. The battle raged, but at last, Kace faltered beneath Draven's claws. Draven stood over him, chest heaving, eyes glowing red with the promise of death. "End him," I urged, my voice low. But Kace looked up at me then, broken, bloodied, and yet still defiant. "You think you're free, Eliora? You think this beast will love you? You will destroy him, just like you destroyed me." The pack waited for Draven's judgment. My heart pounded, but in that moment I realized the truth. Killing Kace wasn't victory. It was mercy. "Let him live," I said, my voice carrying across the field. "Let him crawl back to the ruins he created, and let him know he lost everything because of his own choices. That is punishment enough." Draven's eyes locked on mine. Slowly, he withdrew his claws. The pack murmured, torn between outrage and awe, but I stood firm. Mercy was strength too. The war ended that night. Bloodclaw was broken, scattered, their alpha shamed. Shadowfang stood victorious, not just because of Draven, but because of me. At dawn, the pack gathered in the clearing. Draven took my hand, lifting it high for all to see. "Eliora Thayer," he declared, his voice echoing like thunder, "is no curse. She is no outsider. She is my mate, my Luna, and the heart of Shadowfang. Kneel to her, or be cast out." One by one, they bowed. Even those who had doubted, even those who had tried to destroy me. The silver wolf within me howled in triumph. For the first time, I wasn't just someone's mate, or someone's pawn. I was Alpha's equal. I was Luna. That night, as Draven and I stood together beneath the moon, his arm around my waist, his lips brushing mine, I felt the bond between us pulse like wildfire. "You're mine," he whispered, "and I'll never let you go." I smiled, breathless. "I wouldn't let you even if you tried." But as the wind shifted, carrying the scent of ash from beyond the borders, a chill ran down my spine. Because in the distance, hidden in the shadows, another pair of glowing eyes watched us. And I knew, our story was far from over.